Hey everybody, it's episode 353 of PodQuest.
Hey!
It's Wednesday, May 26th, 2021. I am Chris. With me is Druten.
Hello.
And Walnut.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
I'm doing alright.
Yeah, it's been a couple of days. It's been just a couple of days.
It's also uncomfortably warm today.
Yeah.
I mean, it was uncomfortably warm this weekend as well.
True.
You know what, though? It was less humid over the weekend. Today, it got very humid and thick outside.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about the humidity as much right now because my house will keep the humidity out. It's the dry heat that my house becomes hot in.
Oh.
And when it was close to 100 degrees 2 days in a row, and it just stayed hot upstairs. It did not dip down. My $6,000 new air conditioning unit didn't work because I need to insulate my attic.
Yeah.
So
also, if your house is anything like mine when it comes to like because you have forced air, right?
Yes.
Like our house, like the vents are very tiny and cold air does not get pushed through them very well. Like, so our downstairs, like the air comes through pretty good because it's like right there, but the upstairs barely gets anything because it's just old.
My upstairs gets decent air. Like, I can feel it coming through. But because I believe the attic has not been insulated or re-insulated in 30 plus years, it's just not keeping up. And so I'm looking into I'm going to do it hopefully this weekend, but like, it's going to cost me a lot of freaking money to insulate my attic because I need like the top tier insulation for attic and shit.
Do you have just like open floorboard sort of attic?
Yeah. It's not going to be hard. I know that. It's just going to be get the rolls and roll it, but like based on our region, like there's different kinds of insulation, and the insulation I should get is like for the attic at least, or the insulation we all should get for the attic is like one of the higher tier types of insulation according to Home Depot's site.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. So we probably put the wrong insulation in our attic then.
Maybe.
Like we didn't buy like the cheapest stuff, but I mean it was also 7 years ago now. It was this time of year, too, and it sucked. Like, luckily, if you do it this weekend, it's at least supposed to be cooler.
Mm-hmm.
We did it, like, right around this time, like, the year we moved in, and, like, it was cool leading up to that Saturday, and then that Saturday, it was suddenly, like, 98 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you're dealing with, like, insulation, you're generally not wearing, like, shorts and a t-shirt, and you have, like, a mask on, so you're not breathing all that shit in, and, Yeah, that was a bad fucking day.
Yeah. So, apparently, there's different kinds of like R30 and R, like it's R and then a number.
I think we did look into that.
And I believe for like our area for the attic, you need R38 or above. And like a package of R38 is close to $90. And I don't know how much I'm going to need.
Yeah, I forget how much. I mean, it's 7 years ago, but like I feel like we didn't spend that much on insulation. And our houses are probably similar size, like front to back, I'd imagine.
Yeah. It shouldn't be too much, like, but like the buying a pallet of it is $800, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, you definitely don't need a pallet of it.
Pallet. Yeah, no.
So we were able to buy the insulation and bring it home in my car, and I had the same type of car at the time. Like we were able to like between the back seat and the trunk, like we were able to fit it in. I think you basically like. It more or less works out to like one roll per like spot like strip in the attic. Like sometimes you have to cut it because it'll be like too long or too short or whatever. But yeah, like if you just go up there and like count how many slots you have, that's approximately how many rolls you'll probably need. Yeah, like $800 for a pallet. That's insane. Like you'd be able to insulate your whole fucking house.
You know what? It's gonna happen eventually. This house is so old. It's gonna...
Right, because I mean, you said before, like they just kind of like put like the whatever that stuff's called in your living room. They just kind of put that up in front of things. Like there's no insulation between that and the outer wall.
I mean, it's the stucco house, so it's kind of insulated on its own, I think. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens when we get into the rest of it.
The most fun things to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're gonna do some housekeeping up front here. So. Drew, Richie and I chatted a little bit earlier this afternoon and kind of like threw some ideas around.
Sure.
Rich, you correct me if I misinterpreted this, but I think we're going to basically stop doing the news in a way. Because it's basically and like I don't know if you feel the same way, Drew, but Richie and I kind of both agreed the news is kind of boring. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
unless it's something major like an E3, there was the Monster Hunter thing today that Richie's going to talk about, like a Nintendo Direct, like something like that, something that's kind of like beefy and there's actual things to talk about in it, like just sort of like regurgitating the news if like we don't know for sure one of us has like a legit opinion on it. Yeah. Like, it's not fun for us. It's probably not fun to listen to us when you can just like go scroll through IGN or GameSpot and get the same info.
Agreed. And like you said, if there's something that one of us has an actual level of input on, like Richie with Monster Hunter shit or whatever, that's different and totally makes sense to include. But like random story about a game release or a comic release or this person getting cast in a show that's barely starting production or whatever, maybe not the most interesting.
And as you mentioned, a person getting cast in a show that's barely getting production or whatever, it brings me to poor Donald Faison and the Powerpuff Girls are refilming their pilot because it didn't turn out the right way.
Yeah, and like I have that on this list just because I thought it was. Mm-hmm. I thought that was actually kind of interesting because and I put this in the actual like bit about it. This is the CW. Mm-hmm. The guy in charge of the CW thought that the pilot they made for the Powerpuff Girls was too campy. A show on the CW has officially been called too campy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like in general, like the times where the show is the most interesting is when there's something that at least one of us has a strong enough opinion on that we can sort of like go back and forth. Like a couple weeks ago we were talking about like digital versus physical with that kind of like spun out of the PlayStation class action lawsuit thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every class action lawsuit or every lawsuit that gets brought up, we don't end up having that much to say about it, but occasionally something like that ends up like dovetailing into a different topic. Or like I think it was last week where we were talking about the Mario sports games because Richie, you mentioned the Mario Golf game coming up.
Yeah.
So like rather than us just regurgitate the news, like we're going to mostly retire that. Like E3's in a couple weeks, I'm sure we'll talk about that stuff because this is the first E3 in 2 years. Like, it's kind of a big deal.
And like, gaming shit, we kind of, the three of us all kind of have more input on gaming stuff in general.
Yeah, especially this year where, like, it's all the new hardware. We don't really have new games for that new hardware, so E3 is probably going to be pretty big this year. I imagine, at least.
Hopefully.
And then the other thing that, like, we were kind of kicking around, and we kind of had different ideas on this, was either coming into it with, like, we each pick, like, 2 or 3 things that we want to talk about that week. And like, we talk about those things and try to just have, like, a discussion around those. Or we try to, have that in, like, a smaller thing, and then have, like, some sort of predetermined topic to discuss. It can be, like, a topic that's spinning out of, like, a news item that we found that, like, would be interesting. Or if, like right now, like, because we're right before E3, there's not a lot of news, let alone interesting news. So in, like, weeks like that, we could just, like, we could come up with, like a goofy fucking topic, like platform mascots, or, like, favorite RPGs, or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, like...
definitely, like, stuff that, because we all have different experiences in gaming and nerddom, we can all bring in our own personal opinion. Whereas with the general news, we don't really have a lot of opinions on things because we are all so eclectic in our choices of interest.
Yeah. And, like, especially when it comes to, like, the entertainment stuff. Like, Rich, you and I are generally on... We don't always have the same opinion on how something was, but we generally share a common interest in what we want to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas,
and
like,
I
Drew,
could give
like,
half a fuck.
Yeah, if it's not wrestling or sports, you literally don't care.
Yeah, pretty much.
And even then, like, I feel like in the last couple of years, you've kind of, like, dipped away from wrestling in a big way.
Yeah. I barely watch any of it on a week-to-week basis. I, like, follow a bunch of YouTube channels and get recaps of stuff, and then when, like, the big pay-per-views happen, I'll watch the pay-per-view, because we've had the WWE Network and have Peacock now, but...
Oh, right, because they, like, wrap those together now, right?
Yeah, in the U.S., the WWE Network doesn't...
Right, but because you have Comcast, you actually get Peacock for free, don't you?
Yep. I get the, like, middle-tier Peacock for free.
So does that mean that you were paying for the WWE Network and now you just get it for free?
Yeah.
That's actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't care about the week-to-week stuff, because they have all the like historical stuff on there too. Like they have like their like documentary things plus like old pay-per-views and stuff too, don't they?
Yeah, I haven't personally gone through and looked through all of it, but I heard when it first rolled into Peacock that like finding all the old pay-per-views was like a complete nightmare, especially compared to how the network had it. So I don't know if they've fixed that or not, because I just haven't cared to go look, but
Peacock's like interface was also kind of garbage the last time I saw it. So
Yeah.
that doesn't help. Like when we have like if you look around like at all the streaming platforms, like I feel like Netflix and Hulu are basically the same at this point. Like it's just those like carousels.
Yeah.
Disney is mostly there, but like Disney Plus Drew, I don't know how much you use it. Rich, I think you actually use Disney Plus a decent amount.
About weekly with whatever their weekly show is at most. Yeah.
The only thing that like kind of gets me with Disney Plus is it's not good at like just going to the next episode. If you've stopped watching something like near the end of it, like once the credits roll, because all the Disney Plus stuff has 15 minutes of credits, it just doesn't move on to the next episode, and it does.
Yeah.
Like
the Disney the stuff created for Disney Plus. Yeah, it's really bad with sticking to the next episode. I've noticed that with like Falcon Winter Soldier and shit. Like I'll click it and it's like, all right, we'll start you at episode 1, which we've started you the first 5 minutes 5 fucking times. I'm like, no, I have to go into the page, find the new episode, and click the new episode.
Yeah, and like it does it. I forgot about that too. It tends to like uncheck things as watched. Like I noticed, like with Clone Wars, it would have like the last 2 things I watched marked as watched, but then the other 6 seasons were all appeared like they were unwatched. It was
That's rough.
Yeah, very weird. But then you get to like Peacock and the Paramount Plus things, and they're just garbage. Like just big piles of garbage.
Yeah, like I can't say I've used Peacock much at all. Like, and the little I've used it is to watch, like, actually, I guess just 1 or 2 pay-per-views. I forget if the one before WrestleMania was also on Peacock. And then, like, we went to our friends to watch WrestleMania, and then we watched the last pay-per-view on Peacock, and it's just right there at the very beginning. When a pay-per-view's on, here, watch it. So
okay,
I haven't had to dive into menus really, but like the PLL, the Outdoor Lacrosse League, every game is going to be available on Peacock, along with some being on NBC and NBC Sports. So I have no idea how bad it'll be to try to find those on there.
Yeah, I know we've signed up for like the trials for Peacock, and I think I paid for 1 month of it. Just to watch like the psych movies, and there's the show with one of the guys from Always Sunny called AP Bio. It used to be on NBC, and it got moved to Peacock. And like it was always just it was a pain in the ass to find the stuff. Like it wasn't just there. The search wasn't great. You had to just kind of scroll until you eventually found it in some random menu.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so like to go back to to what we were actually saying. Yeah, so we're gonna try something different and try to make it more conversational.
Well, and just so that the listeners know, like, yes, we are going to be changing the formatting, and it's, some of us have been feeling a little bit drained from the general show that we had. And I'll be honest, and I'll let the listener know. I was going to make this episode my last episode, but then we talked about it, and we're going to try to find new ways to make it more entertaining and enjoyable for us to record, to hopefully make it more entertaining and enjoyable for you.
I mean, like, I'm going to assume, like, these were kind of your complaint was that it was kind of boring to record sometimes. Not going to lie. It wasn't too much less boring for me at times when, like, I have jack shit to say about, like, the CW shows or whatever, and I'm just like, okay. So,
yeah, which makes sense. And, like, it's one of those where, as far as, like the new stuff went, like, that's how, like, I felt about a lot of that, too. It was just like, well, like, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to pause for a second and see if either of you have anything to chime in. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just going to move on, because let's get through this stuff and get to something that somebody actually wants to talk about. Which is why I always, like, it, like, with the outline, based on, like, what Rich had, like, actually, recommended, like, several years ago when we started doing the outline. Like, I always tried to, like, alternate stuff as best as I could. Even if, like, I tried to make it, like, flow. So that, like, we weren't, like, if we had, like, 2, like, say, like, comic booky related things, like, it was, like, an MCU thing and, like, the Avengers game, I tried to like set that up so that like those two things would like flow into each other. But like I also tried to like break it up where like the discussion stuff was kind of falling between news things so that we weren't just regurgitating a bunch of news for 15 minutes and then like 3 things to discuss in a row where like we went long and then just more regurgitating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other than the Godzilla thing, I always just kept that at the end because it just kind of worked as like the closing segment.
Yeah, as a continuing segment, it kind of just works too.
Yeah, which I'm kind of, no offense, I'm kind of glad that you're done with that. Only because I always tried to keep all the entertainment stuff at the end because it just seemed weird to go like entertainment, games, and then more movie stuff. So like,
Cobb,
yeah,
can I let you in on a secret?
Sure.
I'm kind of glad I'm done with it right now, too.
You can watch something else on a Saturday now.
Well, it's not even that, because I was watching. It's just like it was bittersweet to finish, but like I'm happy that I was able to finish it. But I'm like, man, what am I gonna watch now? And I'm like, you know what? Now I can watch these movies whenever the fuck I want.
True.
And like in whatever order, and I can go back and watch my favorites and shit. And like I'm just like I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I did it all. But like there were times where it was just a slog to get through.
Yeah, you know what? By the time we got into like the I'd say like right around when you watched Godzilla '98, maybe a little before that even. Like you did sound just less excited like from movie to movie than you were even when you didn't like the ones in the 50s and 60s. Like you always sounded a little bit more excited to like have them coming up or even like to talk about them after you'd watched.
Yeah, there was so much, and the Reiwa era and the Millennium era just didn't hold up to the Showa era. Like, kind of why I might have like brought it down a little bit, but it's also like I'm trying to think like they made Godzilla so different in the 90s, the Reiwa era, than they did in the Showa era. That is just like, and then in the Millennium era, everything was just one shots basically. That it was just like. We can get more into it when we talk about it at the end, because I watched 3 Godzilla movies this weekend.
Which is just insane.
It was only 4.5 hours.
That's not bad considering
that is short. That is
Cobb watched.
Yeah, that is.
Well, we'll get to that later,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's almost shorter than the Snyder Cut. So
exactly,
because I think the Snyder Cut was at 3 hours and like 57 minutes or something like that.
I watched a Snyder Cut of Godzilla.
Yeah,
I'll talk. And honestly, if I had watched these 3 movies in any other way, I probably wouldn't have as much nice to say about it, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess starting next episode, we'll be changing things up. Probably tomorrow I'll like create it like a new shared doc, and we can all just start throwing like random topic ideas in there for when like we need like a random thing to talk about. And like feel free to be like weird with it if you want to. Like if it's something that we're all just kind of like, if one of us puts something in there and the other 2 of us are just like, no, we're good, then like we'll just put that one at the end in case we like really run out of stuff. But for the most part, like, you know.
And listener what's the word?
Suggestions.
Listener suggestion and participation is encouraged. You guys have our emails and Gmail and YouTubes and Twitters and Facebooks and Instagram. So.
Yeah, and I know we have lists. I don't know if anyone listens, but I know people download. I can see those stats. We get thousands of downloads a month.
Hey,
that's 10 times more than I thought we got.
Oh no, like this. The last time I checked, in May we had a little over 5,000 downloads.
Hey, not bad.
Yeah, I guess I never actually. I don't share that too often. Yeah, we get around 5,000 right now. So
that's like 1,000, 1,250 an episode or so.
So it's actually considerably less than that. Like per episode, because it's a lot. Like we'll have like a big uptick when a new episode releases, but it'll be like a big uptick, and then like every other episode will also be downloaded.
Yeah.
So like, it's almost like we're getting a bunch of new listeners every week. Because like you can see throughout the week, like there's never a day where there's not at least a few downloads, and like that's where like the weekly episodes kind of like go up. But it's like on like Thursday and Friday is usually where like you'll see a little peak on Thursday, and then like usually Friday is like a big peak of like a few hundred downloads, like 500, 600, 700 downloads. And when you look at like the actual episodes, it's like, Okay, so like a bunch of people went through and downloaded like a whole bunch of episodes.
Okay.
But still, like,
Yeah.
it is way better than it was 7 years ago. So, but I think, hopefully you guys agree. I think changing it up and kind of making it more conversational will just make it more enjoyable.
Yes.
And if people want to, like, suggest things or ask questions or whatever, like, social@one-quest.com. It's always in the show notes and everything, too. So feel free to email there. Because I know sometimes people don't make it to the end of the episode. So maybe that's why. Who knows? But yeah, anything else either of you want to add?
Thanks for listening to us, the 5 people that are apparently down. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, Rich, you told me earlier, Critical Role, they're wrapping up their current campaign soon-ish.
Yeah, so the campaign for the Mighty Nine is wrapping up with the end of this arc, which they are fighting. They are literally... They ended the last episode in the middle of a boss fight.
That's a dick move.
Well, it wasn't like the middle of the boss fight. Like, the boss ran off and became its second form. And so they were encountering its second form and weren't in combat once they ended the show.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, Cobb, you don't play D&D, and you know this more. Like, combat in D&D takes for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And when you have a game with 7 players... Right, 7 players, a DM PC, and the boss that has 4 actions a turn and 4 legendary actions. Like, their last episode was about 4 combat rounds. Like, it was kind of slow, but like it's like very climactic. And the boss that they're fighting, like the enemy that they're fighting, it's really I don't know what's the word. I think we lost Rutan because he texted us, and we just got lightning. So, yeah, and he's grayed out in Zencaster. But I'm trying to think. Oh, yep, his power flickered.
Yeah.
He should be back.
Yeah, he'll be able to join back in. Oh, he just dropped out entirely. So there goes his recording. Hopefully he can recover his Audacity. Oh, you're still there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You cut off.
Oh. You know what?
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't all lose power, because it is starting to thunder here too.
Yeah, this is gonna be an interesting night. But anyway, yeah. So they're wrapping up Critical Role. They're wrapping up at the end of this arc. Mercer came out on Twitter and was responding to like a bunch of people asking them like, "Is this the end of the Mighty Nine? Is this the end?" Because they've been making hints to like next character, new character idea, new campaign idea, and it comes to a shock because their last session, or their last campaign, wrapped up at level 20, whereas this campaign is wrapping up at, like, level 16. So it's not too far off, but they have a bunch of stories still left incomplete, and a bunch of loose ends and ties that they need to, like, wrap up. That, like, for them to end it at this point, it kind of, like I had responded to his Twitter. I was like, look, I totally get it. Not a lot of games go 130 plus sessions like yours did, especially 4+ hours long. But hopefully you guys can find a way to wrap up these open stories without rushing them in one shots. That's just all I don't want. I don't want them to just be like, all right, let's rush it for this live show.
Well, yeah, because they're not. Also, my internet did drop for like 5 seconds there, so I missed a little in the middle, but I got what you were getting at. They're not. Like, obviously Critical Role is not done, right? They're just going to start a new campaign after, like, probably a short break.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, like, there's a lot, I think, that has to do with, the timing of this. I feel like they've been going straight for a year, maybe 1 week off, since they came back from the pandemic. Things are starting to open up, everyone's starting to get jobs again, and so they probably have to redo the set to have live shows again. Because they had to reset up the entire set for the pre-recorded shows and the COVID-safe shows. That I think it just all works out that let's end this era of our lives with the end of the Mighty Nine and start new live shows again in a live show couple group set like they used to have with a new campaign.
Which, like, does make sense. And I understand what you were saying before, though, about not wanting them to rush everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, it looks like Drew's back.
Oh, hi. No, it was just going the whole time. Yeah. Yeah, there's a storm in Jersey, and it knocked my power out for long enough to knock out my internet. But apparently not my PC, so that was fun.
Drew, you missed it. They're ending their campaign. The first campaign ended at level 20 after basically killing a god. This campaign is ending at about 15, 16, maybe 17. I don't really remember what level they are.
Okay.
And it's like the mini that they used for the first form of the final boss was fucking fantastic, and he kept under wraps what the mini looks like for the next. And so I'm excited. I might actually watch the intro of the show live on Thursday just to see that, and then go to bed and then watch the re-air on Friday, which is what I normally do.
Because they start pretty late Thursday, because it's like 7 o'clock, like Pacific time, right?
Yeah. They start 7 o'clock California time, so it's 10 o'clock when they start. I've never actually watched or stayed up for a show on a Thursday night.
It's a bummer it's on a Thursday, because like if it was Friday, you could totally just do it.
if it were Friday, I'd fucking do it. But it's Thursday, and the shows generally go from anywhere between 3 to 5 hours. And so, like, alright, at 10 o'clock, I could make it till 1. I can't make it past 1. And I'm falling asleep by 12:30. So it's just, I'll watch it while at work and stuff. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they wrap this up, have a campaign wrap up, and they have their show Talks Machina, where they talk about, like, what happened in the episode or the past couple, because they've been doing it every other week due to COVID constraints and stuff like that. I'm excited to get that post-campaign wrap-up, hear about all of the stuff that Taliesin had made up that Matt went with for this final boss, because this boss is based off of Taliesin's character that died in episode 15 of this campaign.
Wasn't his, like, the little, like, goblin or something like that?
No, that's Sam. So Sam was the goblin who then became the halfling. Taliesin Jaffe was the tiefling blood hunter who died trying to rescue Jester, Ford, and Yasha when they were kidnapped. And they were kidnapped because Laura Bailey and Travis were having Ronin, and Ashley Johnson was going back to Blind Spot. So like they wrapped that all up, kidnapped them so that they could just be away and have a good reason for them to be away. So they went to go rescue them, and Taliesin's character, Molly Mock, died. Who, I have a figure of him. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him.
Oh, yeah, I remember you sending a picture of that before.
Yeah, he's a foot tall, like, kind of demon-looking dude. Very flamboyant. And he had 9 eyes tattooed on his body, which happened to be the power of this thing called the Somnovum. And it's bonkers how Matt, like, pulled all of this together, and like, it's so crazy. He's such a good storyteller and writer.
Especially like 130, because they're at like 150 episodes or so, right?
I believe this last episode was 130. I'm 130 to 140. I'm not sure though.
138.
But so like to pull in like to make like your big bad at the end of the thing, like a player character that died 115 episodes prior. Which, that's, 3 years ago, give or take, if they play once a week?
Yeah. The crazy thing is this character didn't come back into light until after episode 100.
Oh, so, like, they've kind of known that was, like, a villain since then?
No. This character they thought was just flat out dead until episode, like, 104 or 105, when they killed something on an island. And it gave them visions of this Somnovum in the Astral Sea. And then they took a contract from someone who also had eyes tattooed on them. And it just so happened, like, while they were, like, talking things over, they remembered that Molly had 9 eyes. So they went to his grave and dug him up, and he was not there anymore.
Oh.
So then they used a spell called Scry, which you're able to see them and like pretty much just see them and see what they're doing and like hear some things. And they scryed on Molly and saw him walking through the snow. And it just so happened that he was going the same place this other person who had eyes was going to, and it just all worked together. Like Matt weaved this all in, but yet Molly or Lucian was flat out dead for close to 100 episodes before they found out that he was brought back to life, like a month prior to them finding out. A month prior in-game to them finding out that he was back to life. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is, like, that's some, like, legitimate, like, planning, too.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder at what point after the character died that, like, he decided to, like, make that the villain. Like, if it was, like, fairly early, or if it was, like, episode 100 he realized it would work, and that's when he decided to start, like, seeding it in.
So, I think it's probably pretty early on after the character died, because Matt has been asked, like, what would have happened with this storyline if Molly had never died? And he's like, well, the original idea was for Molly's backstory was that Lucian would have come back to life in a different body and would have been chasing Molly all around the world to get his body back. And so with Molly having had just died, it was that much easier to just, you know what, they bring him back to life. So it was pretty early on that they decided to do that, but it wasn't until they let a character who was part of this group know that Molly died. Once that character found out Molly died, then the cogs started turning.
Right. I'm sorry. I was listening, Rich. That was the weirdest fucking thing, though. One of you, I'm assuming it was you, Drew, because you're a little further away, had the thunder fucking come through my headphones before I heard it outside.
I think it was... I mean, I didn't get any thunder through my headphones, but I just got thunder going big right now, so it was probably me. As I was in the middle of talking, got blinded by lightning, and then the thunder came through.
Okay, maybe it was very weird, though. Like, it was just that thing where, like, the distance was enough that one of you had thunder before I did.
Yeah. But yeah, so Critical Role Campaign 2 is wrapping up, and I hope they find a way to wrap up the current storylines without rushing them. That's... If
you think of it, when they start when they're going to start campaign 3, remind me.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't want to play D&D, but I did enjoy watching that stuff, but I started when it was already far enough in that, like, it was just too much of a chore to try and catch up when it's 4-hour episodes every week.
Yeah.
If I can just watch or listen to a 4-hour episode each week, like even if I listen to it over the course of a week between, like, other podcasts, it's not as bad, but, like, when I was, like, 40 episodes away from, it was just, I'm never going to catch up. Like, I don't have enough time in the day to listen to my other podcasts and catch up on this.
Yeah, no, I get it. It coming from the guy who watches every episode twice and is halfway through the first campaign for the second time.
Yeah, but you also haven't watched any of the CW stuff this year, so, you know, you pick your battles.
But but, like, I don't watch CW stuff during work. I watch this specifically during work.
That does make sense.
I will keep you updated. I'm guessing, depending on how this next episode on tomorrow wraps up, probably another 2 to 3 weeks, and then I'm gonna give them maybe 2 months off of primary campaign stuff, and then so probably August or September.
Okay. That seems realistic, because like you said, like, it makes sense for them to take a little bit of time off between campaigns.
Take time off, redo a set so that they can have they no longer need to be in a COVID compliant set because they're all vaccinated at this point. So they're gonna be all, like, together again, set up doing live shows again.
Because they were, the last, like, several months, they've been recording on set. They've just been, like, spread out instead of all being, like, next to each other at a table, right?
Yeah, they're probably 6 feet apart with partitions in between each of them. So they each have a camera on them. They're separated. They're all in studio. Anytime anybody has to get up, they have to put a mask on before they even get off camera. They stuck very strict with the COVID guidelines, and it's primarily because somebody Taliesin lives with is immunocompromised, and so they don't want to cause issues with them. But it's also, COVID's nothing to joke with.
No, it's not. Okay, so Rich, there's more you.
There is more me.
Fucking talk at us about Monster Hunter, because, you know, we don't know what's going on with that.
So there was a Monster Hunter event today. they debuted more information for Stories 2, Wings of Ruin. It's getting me more and more interested in the game. They have this whole like breeding system with the monsties as well now, where you can get an ice monster that has fire attacks because you can merge their abilities. It's really weird and really interesting. It's like Pokemon Monster Hunter. I think it's really cool what they're doing. I've never played the first one, and I don't want to buy a 3DS version and pull out my 3DS to play a 50-hour game. And I don't want to play a 50-hour game on my phone, so I'm probably just never going to play it.
Is it not like Final Fantasy, where like they're not really tied together?
They're not. I mean, this one is like one of the characters from the first one is in this one, but that's about it. But it's not really. It's not a connected story.
So you could theoretically just get the new one and be fine.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm gonna. I'm not gonna even really bother with the original. But like it looks cool. I like the art style that they're using for it, and I'm looking forward to that. But they also, and this is what I mostly watched it for, they debuted information for version 3.0 for Monster Hunter Rise, and right now they technically only announced 2 new monsters for this version, which is kind of fucked. Because one of them is just the Apex version, which is a stronger version of a pre-existing monster. But like there's the new ending, and it wraps up the storyline and stuff like that. There's some event quests and Capcom like collaboration quests that they have going on. And then they have this new monster, which is Crimson Valstrax is its name. And it's an elder dragon, so it's a dragon. It's got 4 legs and wings on its back instead of like wings being its arms kind of thing. That's a wyvern, whereas a dragon is 4 legs, wings on its back kind of thing.
That's such a weird thing. Like, who decided that? Who decided that like dragons are one thing and wyverns, however you say it, are another thing? Like, fuck that person. They're all dragons.
Is
Charizard. Charizard is also a fucking dragon.
Charizard is technically a wyvern because
No, he's a dragon.
No. He is a dragon because he doesn't have wings, and dragons don't necessarily have to have wings, but if they do, they're on its back.
But he's not a dragon type, is more what I was getting at.
Yeah, he's not a dragon type, but trust me, the whole differentiating between wyverns and dragons is just so weird. Because like Ghidorah is technically a wyvern and not a dragon, because his arms are his wings.
Really?
Yeah. He's not a dragon technically. Like Godzilla would more so be a dragon than Ghidorah would be, because if he had wings, they would just be on his back, or he could just curl up like a shrimp and just fire his atomic breath and make himself fly like he did in Hedorah. It happened. It happened. I watched it. But yeah, so they announced Apex Zenogre, which will be fought in both rampages and outside of rampages, which is nice that they're not forcing you to do the rampages. They announced Apex, or not Apex, Crimson Valstrax, which is a monster I've never fought before. But his wings are like 3 points on each wing that shoot fire and are basically jet engines, and that's how he fucking flies. Look this guy up; it's ridiculous.
That does seem kind of obnoxious.
It is, because he one of his moves is he just flies super high up into the air, and all you see is essentially just like a meteor, and he crashes down onto the ground. And then they hinted at the finale of the game, the final boss, but they're like, we're not going to give you spoilers, you just have to play to find out, so they don't tell us what kind of monster, what kind of fight it's going to be. And at this point, we're assuming it's just going to be bullshit, because the big boss battles of this game have sucked entirely, and the whole ending is just the 2 bosses that you fought joining and basically making a new monster, or you have to fight them together. Who knows? But they fucking suck, so no one wants to do it. But then they released a roadmap, and the roadmap doesn't have, at least through August, any new monsters available or coming out. And on top of that, they did a survey on socials asking how people would feel if they did new monsters as DLC, which we're all now assuming that they're done with this game. They did it. They have no plans to support it like they did Monster Hunter World. And if new monsters come out, we're gonna have to pay for it. And I'm not beat for that.
So, you've kind of answered this before. Like Monster Hunter Rise is not like the main game the way World was.
No.
So, like, is it that surprising that this game wouldn't have the same longevity that they put into World, especially being that it's a Switch title?
I don't. I would say it has nothing to do with it being a Switch title, and more to do with it being that this game was being developed before Monster Hunter World had even. And that's the biggest problem, is they didn't know how Monster Hunter World was going to be received with its constant like community updates and junk like that. That they didn't plan for that, it seemed. And so after finding out all that out, they're like, well, we're just gonna release it the way it is, and you know what? We'll blame this on COVID, but we'll say that this was our actual plan and number them. We'll number them version 1, 2, and 3 when it's actually just this was all what it was supposed to originally release as.
Mm-hmm.
To put off that air of support when like this is more how the games were like on the 3DS and shit like that than it was on Monster Hunter World. Like they would have event quests where you could do them and you could get like Legend of Zelda inspired costumes and stuff, but it was fighting the same monsters and nothing new. The only time they added a new monster is when they went from, for instance, Monster Hunter Generations to Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which is a game you had to buy an entirely new cartridge for and start from the beginning.
That's
rough. But
I get it back then. I mean, not that this was that long ago, but like cartridges on like a Nintendo platform did not often have any sort of expansion or DLC.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate that was just 7 years ago.
That's how they play. That's how they ran Monster Hunter through everything before World. Monster Hunter 1 through Monster Hunter Cross. Was Cross and Generations the same thing? I think so.
Maybe.
I can't remember.
I feel like they were, but I'm obviously I'm not going to know.
I think Generations was the Japanese version and Cross was the American version. Or it's swapped. It's Cross. Yeah. Cross was the Japanese version, with Double Cross was their ultimate, and it was Generations of Generation Ultimate for the United States, I think. But yeah, it's just what they had always done, and I'm not down for that anymore. If I knew that I was going to have to, like, if they turn around and say that Monster Hunter Rise Ultimate will be DLC, then alright, I'll get it. But if they turn around and say the only way to get Monster Hunter Rise Ultimate is to buy a new fucking cartridge and start a brand new game, you know what? The new Monster Hunter World 2 or whatever will probably be released by then, and no one will care. Because that's also what happened was Generations Ultimate came out after Monster Hunter World was. It came out in the United States after Monster Hunter World.
Oh, right, because those games were never worldwide releases, were they?
No, I don't think they've ever done a worldwide release, or at least not until World did they do a worldwide release for those games.
Because I know obviously you just said World was Rise a worldwide release, or did Japan get it first?
Rise was.
Okay.
Since World, it's been worldwide minus PC.
But like they just don't like PC for whatever reason.
Yeah, they always. I mean, World was the first one to come out on PC besides the MMO that came out forever ago.
There was an MMO?
There was a Monster Hunter MMO that was only available in Japan.
Oh, that's why I don't recognize it, because it was only in Japan.
Yeah.
Yep, that would explain it.
Yeah, so it's just I don't know. I'm kind of like bummed out that like if this is how they're gonna end it, and it's just gonna be event quests like how Monster Hunter other than World was, then I'm not down for that anymore. Like they already did a bunch of stuff to fuck up this game in general. That like this is going to be one of the most hated Monster Hunter games. And from what I'm hearing from a lot of it, it already is one of the more hated Monster Hunter. There's still going to be people that play it, and hell, I'll still play it. But like, if I'm not getting new content, I'm not going to play it as much as like. I think I have like 400 hours in World. I have maybe 100 hours in Rise so far, and I don't plan on putting too much more on it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember even when it came out, like you tried to say that you liked it, but like the way you talked about it, you just seemed super down on it.
Well, yeah, there was no ending. The game, there's no finale. Like, I had to wait 3 or 2 version updates to get a fucking finale for this game. And then the way they broke up multiplayer and single player so much. Like, Anthony beat the single player game, hasn't touched multiplayer, doesn't know anything about the final shit. He's like, I'm done. If I have to do the multiplayer stuff, and like, he's for some reason against asking us for help, but he is like, it's too difficult, and he really wasn't ever that great of a player. He's like, this game is going to the basement, and I ain't playing it again. And it's just like, there's a lot of people out there that are just like the art style and well, not necessarily art style, but like the world that they built, and like the area that you're in, and the whole like style of like the ninja style and stuff of the game is really cool. Being able to run everywhere is really neat. And like, it became a much more flashy game with like the Silkbind abilities, but it's not great. It's not World, and it's honestly not really Generations.
So can we roll back a second? Did you say that basically the multiplayer progression is a completely separate progression from single player?
Yeah. For the most part, you don't have to play single player at all. You can play all multiplayer, and it's a different storyline than the single player storyline.
Okay, all right. It's a different storyline entirely, 100%?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's... In my head, it sounded worse, and that it was the same storyline, but the progress did not cross over from one to the other.
No. It's a different storyline completely. But like, you don't have to play single player at all if you don't want to, and like, you wouldn't be missing anything. It's just like the very end after you finish. Yeah. After you finish the village stuff, it shows one of the bosses for the multiplayer stuff during one of the final cutscenes in single player. But I had already fought that boss in multiplayer before I finished the village missions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just how they did this one, and how single player is only low rank, and there's only like maybe 1 or 2 high rank missions in single player, and it's all multiplayer that you have to do the high rank. It's not great. Not great.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
Yeah, but that's enough about Monster Hunter. The new update should be out tomorrow. If anything, it's probably up by now, because it's tomorrow in Japan. And that's how it was last time. Like, they announced it on a Tuesday for Wednesday release, but it was available by like 8 o'clock Tuesday night for us.
I remember that when that happened, because it came out way earlier.
Yeah, it was only like 4 hours early. But yeah, I'll probably play it, but I hopefully it wraps up fine, and there's more to it than they actually showed, but I doubt it.
You're going to play it, but you're not going to enjoy it.
I'm going to enjoy it. I'm probably just not going to play it much beyond that.
Which is fair. Sorry, I muted myself when the dog started barking and then started talking without unmuting myself, because, you know.
No problem. But guys, did you know that we have a release date for the Diamond and Pearl remakes, as well as Legends?
I did, because I put it on here. I guess we're going to send news out with a bang by revealing dates for Pokemon games that I don't know any of us are excited for. The Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is coming November 19th to your Switch platform of choice. Well, I guess not platform of choice. It's coming to your fucking Switch. If you don't have one, you can't play it. And then, actually, the more interesting of the games, Legends Arceus, is coming January 28th.
Yeah, that one I at least have a vague level of interest at this. Like,
yeah.
I'm not really, I could very easily not ever actually give a crap about it, but it looks like it could be interesting. At least way more than the Diamond and Pearl reboot.
Yeah, like, I don't know about you guys. I think we talked about this a little bit when, like, these games were revealed. Like, I don't have a huge draw to that generation of Pokemon. Like, it wasn't the worst generation, but it also wasn't a generation that, like, I particularly, like, care about any of, like, the stuff they did.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the generation where they really got out of hand with the legendaries.
Yeah.
Because that one, like, they had, like, a trio, a duo, the Arceus, the god Pokemon, all of those random little one-offs like Shaimon and Darkrai and Cresselia.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing Diamond and Pearl gave us was fucking Lucario.
Yeah. And it's not even a legendary.
No, he's just fucking cool.
Yeah, and that's like, There was a time that I got all the Pokemon games but just didn't beat them, maybe even didn't even get halfway through them. It wasn't until like Black and White that I actually got back into them. And this is one of those times. It's just like I don't have a memory for Diamond and Pearl at all. I might have played it, I can't remember.
Yeah. Though the other good thing that I think Diamond and Pearl did, and I'm not 100% sure that any other game did this. Diamond and Pearl I think was just the first. You could complete the Pokedex as far as like seeing every Pokemon by just simply battling every trainer.
Yeah.
By the end of the game, you will have encountered every Pokemon, including both legendaries. Because in one of the towns, there are pictures of the 2 version exclusives.
Right.
Yeah.
That as long as you did that, as long as you went and looked at that, it counted as viewing that Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because that's how you unlocked. So that was the Sinnoh Dex. That was how you unlocked the National Dex, was to have at least seen all of the Sinnoh Pokemon.
Yeah.
Right.
And then once you unlock the National, you're fucked because that's where like the other 47 legendaries come into it, plus the Pokemon from other generations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But on top of like us just not having much of a like nostalgia for that generation, like I said it before, like those games look like shit. Like they didn't give them like the cool like almost like Rankin and Bass like claymation look the way they gave to Link's Awakening remake. It just looks like somebody did a shitty job up-resing the 3DS game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Arceus one, I think that one actually seems like it could be cool just because it's a totally different setting, being hundreds of years in the past. Like, it's not just about going battling gyms and becoming the very best. Like, it's a whole different thing, it seems, anyway.
Yeah. It's going to be a completely different Pokemon experience than any we've ever had.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if I remember correctly, I think that's the game being worked on by Game Freak. And then Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I think, was actually done by, like, a different studio.
That sounds
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at end of this year, beginning of next year, there's going to be some Pokemon for people that want to play some Pokemon. And as much as I talk shit on the Diamond and Pearl remakes, like, there may be someday where I buy them just because I literally own at least one game from every other generation.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like at this point, like I just feel like I have to own it just to fucking complete the collection. As stupid as that fucking is. Just to give Richie a little bit of break, I'm going to rearrange these next two. So Bethesda and Microsoft are the same company now. So they announced they're doing a joint E3 showcase. And
Yeah.
I feel like that makes sense. Like, why would Bethesda do their own if they're now part of Microsoft?
Especially this year, where it's an all virtual thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's going to be 90 minutes. So, like, I feel like between what Bethesda would probably have to show and what Microsoft will have to show, like, that's probably going to be a good showcase.
And honestly, Bethesda, the only thing they're really going to have to show, maybe, is Starfield.
Well, remember, it's not just Bethesda Softworks or studios. I always forget what their actual game studio is called. It's also, like, Arcane and id and all of those other studios that, like... So id just put out Doom last year. So they'll probably tease something, even if it's just, like, an expansion for Doom. What was the last Arcane game? They just put something out, didn't they? Oh, Deathloop.
No idea.
Deathloop. They're going to fucking talk about Deathloop because it doesn't come out till September now. They pushed it back so they could fit it into the E3 showcase.
But are they?
Oh, right.
Because that's a PlayStation exclusive.
Oh,
It's a PlayStation
shit.
exclusive.
It is still money in Xbox's pocket. Or Microsoft's
Sure.
pocket. I forgot about that, actually. Apparently, like, just a little segue. All the podcasts that I've listened to, apparently that game is actually super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept. I definitely want to look into it when it comes out.
It better be. That's all I gotta say. It better be.
Yeah.
Like,
They
it's been so hyped. It better be good.
They did it sounds like a bunch of outlets got to do like a hands-off preview where like they got to watch somebody play, at least a portion of the game. And it seems like it's a little bit more narrative driven than I expected it to be. Where as you're playing, so like you're the guy, you're on this island trying to kill specific people. Apparently the island is basically just a forced Groundhog's Day where
Okay.
the people that live on this island paid to never die. And the way that they achieve that is they basically just relive every day over and over again. But, like, they know they're reliving every day over and over again, so they can, like, make change, like, they can just enjoy it and just kind of, like, live a life of luxury and never have any consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And then your character is also in this loop. That's why it's called Death Loop, as you're trying to kill specific people. And then that antagonist character that it apparently has some sort of, like, asynchronous multiplayer thing where, like, other players can jump into your game and control that character, knows you and is, like, talking to you throughout the game, like your radios are linked up and they're, like, taunting you and shit. So, like, I don't know how that's gonna. They didn't have a second person come in and play as that character. It was just the AI controlling it. So, like, no one knows how that's exactly going to work. But I'm not gonna buy it, I don't think. But if, like, at least not at launch. If there's, like, a good sale at some point, though, like, I might check it out because, like, hearing what the actual setup is definitely sounds more interesting than it did before.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, to me, it sounds like a roguelike that is just going to be a miss.
Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely in the vein of roguelikes. But, like, something about it just seems... I might just find somebody that's playing the game, like, online that I like and just watch them play. Because it just sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so the Microsoft Bethesda thing, like, at 90 minutes, I feel like that's going to cut back on, like... Let's call it the bullshit, because I can't think of a better word for it. Like, all those, like, the montages and stuff that, like, Microsoft tends to do.
Yeah.
Where it's like, here's, like, 5 minutes where we're going to show you just, like, 40 little games that nobody really gives a shit about.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be like, all right, well, here's Halo, and here's something from The Initiative, or Ninja Theory, or, like, any of those, like, 50 other studios they've purchased over the last few years that haven't released any games yet.
Yeah.
And then the, like, dozen or so Bethesda-related things that they could potentially show or tease. Because I guess, when was... Shit. The Nazi killing game. Why can't I think of... Wolfenstein. The last one of that was the expansion, let's call it, for 2, right? The New Blood?
Well,
or
there was
Youngblood?
Youngblood. Yeah, Youngblood is... And that's still even, like, 2019?
So, like, Machine Games is probably due to announce something, I would think.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Youngblood was 2019.
Okay. So, yeah, so, like, I feel like there's enough studios there that, like, Microsoft could actually have a pretty good 90-minute thing.
Machine Games is working on an Indiana Jones game.
Right, I forgot about that. They teased it, but they didn't show anything for it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll see that come...
I'd imagine.
Because what is that? The 13th? So, like, 2 weeks from now? 2.5 weeks from now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it's a Sunday. That's good. Yeah, so the E3 thing is going to be Sunday, June 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, for anyone that cares about that. Is there anything either of you guys would want to see from Microsoft or Bethesda?
I mean, so, you know, I'll be interested in whatever id and Machine Games have going. Microsoft-wise, I really don't know. I've never super cared about their first-party stuff, which is why I've never owned an Xbox. But I don't know. Like, there'll probably be some Halo.
I mean, there better be some Halo at this point, right?
There's definitely going to be some Halo.
Forza, whatever.
Yeah, I'm the same way with Microsoft. At least, like, I'm over Microsoft. I'm over, like, I enjoyed their first party games, but I haven't played them in years. Like, I haven't played Halo 5. I haven't played any of the Gears in a while. Like, it's I'm over them. When it comes to Bethesda, though, like, I do want to see Starfield. I do want to see the next Elder Scrolls. I do want to see if they have anything upcoming to make Fallout 76 worthwhile. Like, I feel like 76 is a game that I could definitely fall very deep into, but I don't know if it's worth it right now still.
Yeah.
I'd imagine they're kind of over supporting that game at this point.
I think they just had something new launched for it.
I mean, they've been doing, like, bits and pieces, but I can't imagine, like, that game is doing well enough for them to a heavy...
Yeah, I don't know, but, I want to know what the specs are going to be for Starfield so I can figure out how expensive of a PC I have to.
I mean, a Bethesda game, it probably doesn't have to be, like, that expensive of a PC.
I just need to upgrade. I just need to get my PC from being a 2012 to a 2013.
I'd go like at least 2016. This way, like your PC is good for a while. But
Yeah.
like it's Bethesda. Like yeah, the 2016 era stuff. Like you'll be able to play on at least mid settings for a Bethesda game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there anything that Microsoft could show that would actually get you guys to want to buy either of the Xboxes?
Price drop for the Xbox.
Well, I mean, for sure, especially like if the Series S got to 200, like I'm already kind of interested in one at 300. I mean, like to me, it would be an interesting new IP, and like I can't say like what that would be really, but it would be just something new. That's like I don't need Gears 7 or 6, whatever the fuck it is, or Forza. Like some new idea.
This is gonna be a little off the wall and sound maybe a little crazy, but the only way I would buy a Microsoft system is if they were to have Steam compatibility and I'd be able to play my Steam games on my.
But you can already play your Xbox games on a PC.
Exactly. Why I'm not going to buy an Xbox.
That's actually why I was asking, because like Drew, you just got a PC, and Rich, like you've been batting the idea around for months now. It's just other things keep coming up for you. Yeah. Where it's like, is there anything that like you'd rather play on a console that like would get you to buy a console, short of it just being cheap?
Nah, not that I could really think of.
My main thing now is I want to start streaming my gameplay, and so if I'm gonna get a PC, I'm gonna be able to stream everything I'm gonna play, and like the games I want to play in general aren't on consoles or aren't on the Xbox.
That's because you want those weird fucking survival games.
I like weird fucking survival games, man.
Ark Survival is on the Xbox Game Pass.
It's also on PlayStation, and it's also on PC, and that's a server-based game, so I would want to be able to have like friends that I play it with our own server. So I probably wouldn't play it on it.
Which, like, again, like, is understandable. Mm-hmm. Especially because you do know a bunch of people that play games on PC probably more than they play on console.
Yeah. Like, there's a ton of games that like I have on PC, or that like, and it's not even like I have that, like, I don't know. There's just a bunch of games that I want to get back to playing again, and I can't. I can't play them on my consoles. They're not available, and so I have to play it on PC. Like I have to buy a PC and play it there. Like the PlayStation, they're having their Days of Play sale right now.
I was actually looking at that earlier.
And what is it? City Skylines full content update or full content DLC is available. I'm like, do I want to buy this here, or do I just want to try to get it all cheap on PC, because I can play City Skylines on my PC, and like I have the Epic version. Do I want to just buy the game for the first time ever and just get all the DLC on Steam instead, and like have all the mods as well, or do I want to buy the DLC on the PlayStation? Which
like makes sense, because or not makes sense is the wrong thing. Like that's an understandable like question to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I've said it a bunch of times, like, I would always go for the console over the PC. Like, part of me wants a, like, decent PC just to, like, have it, not even just for games, just for, like, other stuff. Like, it'd be nice to be able to, like, record this to, like, a decent PC instead of, like, a shitty laptop. And, like, we could, like, toy with the idea of doing video and stuff like that if all three of us had, like, working computers. And, like, it'd be nice to have, like, that option of, like, oh, there's, like, a random indie game that seems interesting, or stuff like that, where, like, it's only available on PC, or just incredibly cheap on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, if it was, like, okay, well, you can buy it on Steam, and honestly, like, I'm stupid enough where, like, okay, it's $5 on Steam, it's $25 on PlayStation, I'm gonna buy it on PlayStation. Like, I would just rather play it on my couch, in my living room, on my TV.
But see, that's when you do something like get a Steam Link.
They don't sell them anymore.
You can get them. I'm pretty sure they do sell them.
No, they don't.
No, they discontinued them like 4 years ago.
And sold them all for like all the rest that they had for like $2.
Like, I wish I would have gotten one just to have it. And like, the prices may have changed, but like the last time I like just looked on eBay, like it's one of those things that people sell for an unreasonable markup.
Because there are no more.
Yeah. But like the option would be to like put the computer downstairs and plug it into the TV and that's just a hassle on its own. Like for Rich, like it works for you because your PC is in your living room. Like it's actually not a problem for you to just plug it into your TV and sit on your couch to play stuff. For me to like bring a keyboard and mouse downstairs and like plug it, like it's just not worth it. Like I'd rather just buy it on PlayStation or Switch or Xbox or whatever.
I mean, just do what I did and completely remodel your whole office space up there. Wall mount a 43-inch 4K TV and hook your PC up to that.
This room is too uncomfortable.
That's fair.
Like even if I were to put like a couch and stuff up here, like there's 4 months out of the year where like, and also like I sit up here and sweat all day for work. I don't want to do it in the evening or on the weekends.
No, I totally understand that feeling.
Even like right now, like I have the ceiling fan on. It's a little cooler outside than it was, but like I have to like keep my back off of my chair or like my back's just going to be all sweaty and uncomfortable. And it's a bummer, but you know, it is what it is. But we've chatted about Bethesda and Microsoft and Xboxes enough. Rich, how is No Man's Sky? You dip back in for your yearly check-in.
Yeah, my yearly check-in, starting a new character like always, because it's been a year since I played it. So 14 hours down the drain in 2020, which, I mean, that doesn't really make a difference because it's fucking 2020. I had all the time in the world.
It's also like it's like the 5th time you've done it, so really you're up to like 100 hours?
Yeah. I think it's only like the 2nd or 3rd time. But yeah, I jumped back in and they have added a decent number of things that weren't there last year. So over the past year, they added better for building at least. They added better snapping to the buildings to stuff you have already plotted out. So now like there's no like my first building I tried to make last year was garbage because it didn't snap to. So it was all just kind of hanging there. Now there's like snap tos, which makes it a little bit easier. Your scanner visor now has like a frequency detector. And so if you open up your scanner and hit left, if there's like a frequency nearby, if you're searching for a frequency for your story or whatever, it'll like give you directions as to generally where it is. I haven't tried testing that out outside of like a quest, but it is always available. So I do want to check that out. I'm not far. I only played for about 4 or 5 hours. I think I started at 6 o'clock and then suddenly it was 1, so maybe like 7 hours. And so like I still have to get a little bit further into it because I was quite far story wise in my playthrough last year, if I remember correctly. There's like I haven't even gotten to the main central hub yet. I haven't left my initial galaxy, but it's just like it seems like they added a hell of a lot this time than this year over the past year. Last year I was just building pre-made stuff, which they don't have it available initially this time, which is weird.
Wait, what do you mean?
So for instance, my buildings were all just big circles that are already like you just place it, and then you can place where to put the door and where to put the ramp up to the door, but everything else is just built, so you don't have to like put a foundation and the walls together. It's just all together itself. When I was playing yesterday, I had to place foundation for wood walls, and it's weird how you have to, or it's weird the way they push you to craft in that one. With like, in order to unlock different crafting materials, you need to actually go out and get these data discs and then trade them in to be able to build more wood stuff. So you just get an initial set of things that you can make out of wood, and then you can make more wood stuff after you get more of these data discs, or you can learn concrete or different or metal or whatever. But the crafting in that game it's pretty cool. It's easy. The one thing I hate is you can't plot out how your wires go, and so you need to set up like a battery. Like I always go for solar panels and a battery. So you set up a few solar panels on your roof, you connect them to a battery, and then you connect the battery to everything else that you need to charge. So this way, at night, it still stays on. But like, if you were to walk into my house, you see 2 wires coming out of the battery just going right through a wall into the next room where I have 2 lamps set up, because you can't run the wires, or the wires don't stay hidden. It's always shown what's connected to what. It's kind of annoying.
That sounds kind of annoying.
Yeah. But it's, I still have a lot further to get into, but I started off in a really cool, like, star system with, like, 4 planets, 2 of them habitable without having to, like, worry about hazards. So I've just been exploring them, because I've never gotten that lucky. My one planet, all of the creatures are just giant balls, like, that roll around. It's the weirdest thing. Another planet, I found, what was called, like, a, quote, a glitch, and the planet was a destabilizing planet. So now I have this plant in my house that was a glitch from another planet. Then, like, the creatures on that planet were all just, like, energy shades or something like that. It was weird. I've never seen stuff like these before.
You don't play on survival for this game, do you?
No, I did that once, like, 3 years ago, like, when they first incorporated it, and fuck that. That is like, I could not progress after, like, an hour. I couldn't progress, because the planet they started me off on was a high heat, very high heat planet, and I was, like, so far away from my ship, and I couldn't get my ship to come to me, because I was still trying to fucking repair it at the time. And I lost before I even started.
And it's funny because you actually like those games. Like, or not those games, you like survival games.
Yeah, survival games are fun, but, like, that game can be kind of brutal, because, like, I'm used to worrying about water and food, but it's like you have to worry about your oxygen, your hazard protection, your shields, your health, your weapons, and, like, they each need something different that's not really labeled very well. And to increase or repair your hazard protection, you need, I can't remember what you need, but it's yellow. And it's not very common on a lot of planets. So if you get a really bad planet that has very high heat or very high radiation, and not a lot of this yellow plant that you need, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, which, I mean, that was always kind of the way that game was. It was just, when it wasn't in survival mode, there were other things you could figure out to do.
Yeah.
But, like, there was always that chance that, like, you'd land on a planet where you just couldn't do anything and you were and, like, your ship was damaged and you were just fucked.
Yeah. And, like, it made it harder because that was my first planet. If that were, like, the second or third, I would have been a little bit more prepared and things like that. Like,
true.
Getting off your first planet is the hardest part, especially in the survival of that game. Like, after you get off the first planet and start to scan the rest of them, it's not hard to know where you need to go or what stuff you need.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when did that game come out? 2016?
16 or 17, yeah.
I'm going to double check before I say anything crazy. Because watch, it came out in, like, 2014 and we just are all fucking wrong.
No, I know it wasn't 2014.
2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, August 12th, 2016. So it was 5 years ago. The last time I dipped into it was after the first big update. So what was that? I think that was the following year in 2017.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
So it's been 5 years since I played it?
It's a completely different game.
4 years.
It is a completely different, yeah. Like, in that time, they have completely updated it and changed it. Like, you remember how vanilla, and probably around that update, in order to get, like, upgrades to your suit to have increased carry capacity, you had to scour the planet for these beacons, and then use the beacons to search for a certain thing, and then go find it, and then get that upgrade. Now it's, every time you go to a space station, you buy an upgrade. It's not, like, as scoured around. I'm still trying to learn what everything will bring me to try and upgrade my equipment but I'm only, like, 5 hours in, so I still have a lot to get into to learn and remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mentioned, I said this, like, kind of, I think it was when we first started talking about this, like, earlier tonight. I don't even remember anymore. That's what my fucking life is like. I might actually, like, at some point over the next couple of weeks, re-download it just to, like, dip into it and see what it's like, because it does sound like a lot has changed.
There's like a whole quest story progression. They added something new, like expeditions is what they called it, with this most recent update, that, like, it's a whole mode in when you choose which mode to start when you jump into it.
And you can go find Normandy.
Yeah, you can get the Normandy. And that's what I want to get to, is the point to have, like, a starship and that's why I want to play with like other people. And they recently added cross playability, so if you have it on PC, you can play it with people on PlayStation. And like, I just want to get a whole bunch of people and have a starship and just go from planet to planet doing whatever the fuck we want.
Which is kind of that's what everyone wanted and thought the game was up front, because like no one really paid attention.
and it's also what they built it to be. They not build it, but like they said that that's what it was going to be, but then didn't make it that.
Yeah, like all of the PR speak around that game was very misleading, because it's like if you actually like watched the stuff and like really read it, you realize like what everyone was like saying the game was going to be was just not what it was going to be. But like all the PR stuff kept coming out and all the promotional stuff, and it's like, oh no, that's what this game is. And it's like, no, it's definitely not. Like,
yeah,
it's like a 12-person team. There's no way they're making that game.
Yeah.
But it's cool that like it's cool that they have kept up on it for this long and like made it closer to what I assume what their original vision was for it.
I think it's what the original vision was, and now they're just keep adding stuff. They have to be making money off of this game to keep supporting it. And I like maybe people are still buying it, or I don't know. There are 3 different currencies in the game, so one of them is DLC currency or whatever. But like I don't know if there's a lot of pay to win in it. But they have to be making some good money in order to keep making that.
Yeah, at least enough money that like they are all surviving and makes it worthwhile. Like, because they probably see some sort of like uptick whenever they release the big patch. So it's like, all right, well, we're going to release a big patch, get that uptick in sales and what have you, and then like we'll get to work on the next thing and have the same thing happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have 2 final news things. I'm just going to lump them together real quick. Because they're both CW related. We mentioned one of them earlier. The CW has scrapped the initial pilot for the Powerpuff Girls live action show. It is now going back to the drawing board. They're reworking it. They're going to reshoot a new pilot for it. That pushes it out of a fall premiere. I think it might be one of the few like publicized shows for the CW that isn't going to debut in the fall. It'll probably, at the earliest, it would be like mid-season next year. So like early to mid 2022. Because I think they're aiming to shoot the new pilot in the fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the president of CW, Mark, whose last name I did not copy down, it's like Pedowitz, I want to say his last name is. He had some quotes with Deadline about it, saying the reason we do pilots is sometimes things miss. This was just a miss. So like apparently like whatever they decided to do with this just wasn't great. And then he went on to say, we believe in the cast completely. We believe in Diablo and Heather, which were the showrunners, writers. That the pilot just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say later on that it might have felt a little too campy, which is what I mentioned earlier, where like it's a CW show that felt too campy. Like I put an example down here on the show Riverdale. I know you guys don't watch it, but that show started out as like a fairly like generic like kind of murder mystery about high school students. You know, like nobody was up to anything too crazy. There was some like scandalous stuff, but like nothing like completely over the top where you're just like, no, that's bullshit. And one of the last like 2 seasons, Archie, one of the main characters, got in trouble, went to prison where he was forced into an underground fight club by the warden. He then escaped that prison after having, I kid you not, a inmates versus guards football game that they were set up to lose. He escapes from prison, hides out in the woods where he fights a bear, like a fucking grizzly bear, and survives. And the Powerpuff Girls was too campy.
I want to see this pilot. If it was too campy, like, it's the fucking Powerpuff Girls. It's gonna be campy.
Apparently the script has leaked out. If you at least want to know what the script was, that's out there.
Oh.
And it's apparently garbage.
I mean, yeah, for a net look, I like a lot of the shitty content that CW puts out. It's not, it doesn't deserve awards, but it's entertaining. I am interested to see what was so bad that they're just like, oh no, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I am actually more interested to see like what this show ends up being too.
Yeah.
Because it's like that if they care enough to actually repilot it, either they spent a lot of money on the license, which is totally possible, or I guess there are three possibilities here. They spent a lot of money on the license. They gave these actors very poorly thought out contracts, like in the sense where they offered them a lot of money up front, whether it goes to series or not. That like they want the show to go to series so that like they're not just out that money.
Yeah.
Or like they just legitimately need more content.
I don't think it's the content.
Well, I forget if we talked about this at all or not, but a couple weeks ago they did announce that they were expanding their primetime stuff to include Saturdays, so they will actually have like scripted primetime content 7 days a week, which I don't think any other network has. So like they have another day, so they have another like 2 to 4 hours to fill now.
Yeah.
And you know, like Black Lightning and Supergirl, 2 of their CW shows are ending, but they have 2 other Arrowverse shows that they could technically be creating. So who knows? But do you think either of you will watch the Powerpuff Girls to see what it is when it comes out?
Oh, I'm definitely gonna watch it. I will support Donald Faison in no matter what. So I will definitely watch it.
I mean, you're assuming he's still involved when they go back to it.
I mean, they did say they believed in the cast.
Yeah, they didn't say it was anything about the cast. They said we were in the cast. I'm assuming they're not going to recast Donald Faison as or somebody else for Professor Utonium. I don't think he would have ruined it to where they would have to redo it, because if you're saying that the script was garbage, then it wasn't Donald Faison.
I'm reading some of this script. It's cringe as fuck. Like they're like grown, shitty, like reading a lot of stuff. They look like they're influencers talking about shit. Like they're talking about being on Instagram and LinkedIn and shit, and like.
Which I think, like, the whole idea that they kind of, like, set up front was, like, they were supposed to be, like, disillusioned with, like, how their childhood was spent. So, like, I could understand if they kind of, like, went their separate ways, and because they were, you know, famous as children superheroes, like, that they did become some sort of, like, social media icon people. But, like, there's a way to do that and have it work, and there's a way to not have it work. Like, I think Legends actually did it okay with Zari. Like, she's kind of like they played her up when they did that change to her in like the last season. Like the first few episodes she was in, like they really played up her being like this ditzy, vapid, only cares about like the likes and shit.
Yeah.
And then like over the course of a few episodes though, like they showed that like she actually had more depth to her. She was still kind of ditzy and vapid, but like she cared.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can get away with that with a character that's been around for 4 seasons that you're just kind of like twisting. Like you can't really do that in like the pilot of a brand new series and want people to like give a fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we'll see next year what Powerpuff Girls ends up being.
I have a strong feeling this just never happens.
I mean, that's possible too. I feel like if the pilot was that bad, then and from Drew, what you're saying, like the script is cringy.
Here, real quick, I'll give you 2 lines. Buttercup, coming back here is probably triggering for her. Bubbles, why? Because she's the one who killed Mojo? I mean, moveon.org.
Okay, yeah, that's just...
Or, here, this is the beginning of Act 2 in, I'm going to guess, the pilot episode. Interior, Powerpuff Girls home, kitchen floor, night. Blossom's out cold. Bubbles and Buttercup hover over her. Buttercup, Bloss, wake up or we'll leak your nudes everywhere. That worked on you once.
Yeah, that's a...
Yeah, like...
Yeah,
the
like...
fuck?
If the script is that bad, like, I feel like that probably is not the cast's fault, but, like, maybe you need to go back and look at who your writers and showrunners are.
Diablo Cody.
Yeah.
I mean, she's making the show. Like, I don't really know much of anything about what she's done. I can't remember what she's made, but, like, it might all be on her.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I don't know anything either. So, also, I thought Diablo was a person's last name. So,
no, yeah.
So that goes to show what I know. But yeah, but yeah, so She wrote Juno.
Jennifer's Body.
Oh yeah, so she has just written a bunch of not good movies.
Burlesque. She's
That was script revisions, and on the you know what, that 2013 Evil Dead wasn't bad.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like actually I've seen a few episodes of that show, United States of Tara. That was actually an interesting show for the time. It was if I remember correctly, the lady had multiple personalities.
That sounds right. And I remember that show being fairly well regarded.
Yeah, and it was a Showtime show, so it was a little like edgier, especially at that time, 29 to 2011. So I remember that being interesting though. But yeah, like I know Juno was very popular. I did not like that movie at all. Jennifer's Body is also a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like just all the way around, just not a good movie. Never saw any of the other. Well, like I said, Evil Dead I think was okay. I've never seen any of the other ones.
She didn't write that though.
No, but she had script revisions, uncredited script revisions. But I guess we'll find out. Like we'll see if Powerpuff Girls, or I think they're just calling it Powerpuff, ends up being anything, or if it just like kind of disappears and is never spoken of again. What was the other thing? Oh, Rich, I know you're super behind on this stuff, but they announced for next year, the Flash season 8 is going to premiere with 5 episodes of crossover.
I'd like that.
Yeah, so they haven't gotten into any like details, but they're going to basically set the first 5 episodes up where like either characters from the other shows appear on the Flash, or the Flash goes to where those other characters are. They didn't get into like the details. But the thing that I thought was interesting, Cress Williams, who is the star of Black Lightning, said that the CW has reached out to him about it, which means just because a show is over does not mean that they might not be in these crossover episodes.
Yeah, I that's what I always figured. Like, Diggle is supposed to be in an episode this season.
Diggle is apparently going to be like the only... Like, Diggle is going to be the crossover factor this season. He is appearing in multiple of the Arrowverse shows.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean that like they couldn't do it at all. I meant more that they are actually actively seeing if these actors would like to do it. Which is great because like there's always a chance that there's some sort of thing with Stephen Amell where like he just comes for like, even if it's some sort of like weird dream sequence on the Flash. Cause like him and Grant Gustin always had really good chemistry together. And the same thing with Melissa Benoist. Like her and Grant Gustin have really good chemistry together. So like one of my favorite things on either of those shows is still the Flash coming onto Supergirl in that first season, and that scene where they're getting ice cream. And like he runs and brings ice cream back, and she's just like, "Oh yes."
Yeah.
Like that was just such a good like representation of those characters.
Yeah, it's like he's a good actor and always works well with a lot of people, and especially seeing as how like you're saying with this season, it's kind of missing because a lot of the characters you're not feeling for a lot of the current characters in this season, and a lot of the old ones are leaving. It kind of makes sense to like bring him to have those relationships with the Justice League or the Justice Friends, whatever they're going to call them in this series.
There's no Justice League left. Everyone's leaving.
I mean,
it's Barry.
Superman.
I was gonna say it's Barry, Clark, and maybe Katie Lotz from Legends. What's her fucking character's name?
Mockingbird.
No. She's White Canary, but I can't think of what her character's. Sarah Lance. There we go.
Sarah Lance.
I lost that one for a minute. But I was gonna say something else about this, and now I totally lost track. As far as the Flash is concerned, I know you're not gonna be able to watch it for a while. There's like a Killer Frost story arc though that happens like early on in the season. After they kind of get through like the ending of the previous season, it's really good, and like Danielle Panabaker is doing a really good job playing like those two characters.
Yeah.
Like she's always actually been really good at like playing like the very like sort of like friendly, well-meaning like Caitlyn, and then like the kind of like asshole Frost. But like in this story arc, like she's been especially good.
Yeah.
So
I liked what she did last season too. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty big change this season too. So like I don't want to spoil anything for you, so I'm not going to say more. But like she has been like the bright spot of this season, where like everything else has been kind of falling flat.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully, so it's supposed to be next November is when this stuff is going to happen. Because the way that the article on IGN explained it, because of COVID kind of pushing everything back, normally they would be wrapping up their season in like April for like and then it would be airing in like May. Because of this, they're apparently not going to be finished shooting until June. And then they would like wrap up in April and then they'd be back shooting in like July or August for an October premiere. But because they don't want to they want to make sure that the actors have like at least some time off, they are not going to start shooting until September. So these 5 episodes are probably not going to air until November at some point. So it's still going to be almost like it's going to be close to a mid-season premiere. And honestly, it might even be these 5 episodes run through like November and December, and then the season proper doesn't start till late January.
Yeah.
But hopefully at that point, like, they have enough stored up that they can wrap the season in a relatively normal spot and be back on track come the following year.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this is sort of related to this. Mostly for you, Rich, because Drew, you just won't give a single fuck. If you have time, Rich, find the podcast. It's called Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. There are 2 episodes with Stephen Amell. Actually, there's a bunch of episodes with like all the Arrowverse people. But there's 2 with Stephen Amell that are really good.
Yeah.
Especially the second one he is on from like a year ago. Was actually especially good because it was right after Arrow wrapped, like for good, like they wrapped the last season. But all of it hadn't quite aired yet at that point, and it's maybe between both episodes, it's about 2.5 hours. So they're not long. They most of his episodes only run about an hour. That second Stephen Amell one, because of some things that happened during it, goes for an hour and a half. But like I think you would actually enjoy those 2 because they are actually super interesting.
Yeah, I'll look into that when I.
Well, Critical Role is going to be wrapping up for a while, so you'll have 8 hours a week where you won't have anything to listen to.
Yeah, true. I tell you that watching it twice a week really takes away the time that I have to listen to my podcasts.
Understandably. So did you end up getting to finish Army of the Dead?
Yes, I did. I did watch Army of the Dead.
All right, so all of us watched Army of the Dead. I'm going to say right up front, that was probably the best Zack Snyder movie I've ever seen.
That's
a
really
low bar, but
I didn't say it was a high one.
Fair.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I liked what they did with the zombies and essentially turned them into ghouls at one point, and like it was a different take on a zombie story. And who didn't see that ending coming from a mile away?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I agree though. Like I like how they kind of they had basically different pedigree of zombie. Like depending on how they were turned, you were either like your generic kind of just rambling zombie, or you were this like 28 days later like monster zombie.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why, like, I said it to you, and I said a little bit, like, there's zombies and then there's ghouls in this. Like, I look at those other ones as more like ghouls and less as zombies. Like, they have more of a mind to themselves. Mm-hmm. They have, like, a herd mentality and a tribe mentality.
Which I feel
they have an alpha as well, which, like, is not something you often see in zombie films.
And I feel like there was another zombie-esque thing that had a similar take, and I can't think of what it was. Like, just, not like the way that this was done, but just, like, zombies that had, like, a weird, like, pack mentality. And, like, a hierarchy, basically.
Well, I mean, these zombies had, like, some level of sentient. Like,
yeah.
They weren't just dumb dead.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that they made it a heist movie, and, like, wrapped inside of the...
Mm-hmm.
That, I do wish they could have made it a little more heist-y. Because, like...
Yeah.
They had that, like, before they go into the city, they had that, like, let's go build our crew bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so you're setting up all these characters with, like, different, like, kind of, like, over-the-top personalities and shit, that, like, I kind of wanted it to be more like an Ocean's 11, like, heist thing when they were in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it ended up being very by the book, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't get their time to shine, and... Like, when the heist part ended and the zombie part began, I feel like it should have been a little bit later. Like, I feel like they should have gotten the money and been on the way out before they had to deal with the zombie part. Instead of just, like, they're getting attacked down in the...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, they honestly probably could have trimmed more of the beginning of the movie down and put us into the actual heist portion sooner, so that they could have stretched that a little bit more, had that be a bigger part of it, and then still had like the same action stuff going on. What were you gonna say, Drew?
I was going to say, I totally agree with that they didn't give the characters the time to shine enough, and the movie still felt excruciatingly long.
Yeah, at times it definitely did drag on. We just kind of jumped right into it. For anyone that like doesn't know what Army of the Dead is, it's a Netflix movie. It was written and directed by Zack Snyder of Justice League, Zack Snyder cut fame.
It's almost as if when Zack Snyder doesn't have any studio restraints, he makes a decent movie.
Yeah, and something actually interesting that like I saw when I was reading up on this. So he was screenwriter along with some other people, director. He also did his own cinematography, which I've said a bunch of times. Like, I think Zack Snyder is a very good like visual director, but like falls apart on like the story side of directing. And I think like he did a much better job here where like he sort of had full control over it. Because going back and looking at like all the DC movies, he was not the like person credited as the writer in most cases. Like he usually was like a co-writer or something like that. But like in a lot of cases, somebody else actually wrote the script. He was just given a script that like he helped develop, but not that it was like his from start to finish. And like maybe him having like full control actually works out better. Like it basically the polar opposite of like George Lucas. Like whereas like Lucas should just be the one to come up with like the story and like write like the initial draft, and then should hand it off to other people to actually like make it real.
Yeah.
Whereas like maybe somebody should just give Snyder like an idea that he likes and then like let him just run with it.
Yeah. It's like I saw somebody else say pretty much the same thing, and pretty much what I said. Like, if you give him the ability to just make what he wants to make, he's gonna make a decent film or a better film than what he was making with like the DC shit.
Yeah, and and then as far as the movie goes, because I got sidetracked again. It's a zombie heist movie.
Okay, I was actually gonna real quick say, but Cobb, don't you fucking hate Sucker Punch? And he had that, like, that's exactly the same thing. This is his idea, his story, his
So I don't
writing,
hate
his
Sucker Punch. I just think it has a nonsensical story. I think it is a visually really cool movie with what could have been a very cool concept. But also, it's 10 years later. Like, people change over time.
True.
And
Wasn't Sucker Punch based on something as well?
I don't believe so, because he basically did Watchmen, which was not good, and then Sucker Punch, which
to quote the Wikipedia, it's Snyder's first film based on an original concept.
Okay. So it's his first one based on an original concept too.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed Sucker Punch. I thought it was a really good movie. Really like really interesting take on something like that. Like I liked that movie a lot.
Yeah, like,
I
think it was
like
a cool
Sucker
concept
Punch too. Like, yeah.
I don't think Sucker Punch had a good narrative flow.
Sure.
But I think it was a really cool concept. It was a very cool aesthetic for a movie, if that makes sense. But yeah, so this one, it's a zombie heist movie. Vegas became ground zero for a zombie outbreak. It was quarantined. The U.S. government is going to drop a nuke on it in a few days. And Drax the Destroyer makes a team of mercenaries to go rob a fucking casino.
Yeah. Am I the only one who took the them on the news talking about the president, where he was like, it would be really cool if we had that great fireworks display on July 4th or whatever. Like, when they were talking the news and saying that they moved the day up. Like, am I the only one who got they're making fun of Trump?
I think they might have
feeling
been.
Like a flat out, this is an attack on Trump, or this is like a pull of something that a Trumpism, basically.
Like, I kind of, like, I thought that a little bit while I was watching it too. And I know they, apparently this movie has been in like a one form or another of development hell for like a decade.
17 years.
Has it? Jesus, I didn't realize it was that long.
Or hold on. Oh no,
I
sorry,
thought it was
14
2007 or something.
Yeah,
like
2007. In my head, I read 2004 earlier, but in a 14 year. Also,
God.
apparently the interiors were filmed in Atlantic City.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
They used the shut down casinos in Atlantic City.
Hey, look at that. AC is good for something.
I wonder which one.
It was the
Probably
Atlantic City Club, Casino, Hotel, and the Showboat.
But yeah, I wouldn't write home about, like, this movie doesn't deserve any awards, but I was entertained for it. It, like Drew said, it was definitely longer than it needed to be.
It did not need to be fucking 2.5 hours long.
no. I was working while watching it, and I agree with that. Like, the first 2 hours of the movie, I didn't really look at my screen at all, and I got everything.
Yeah.
Everything. It wasn't until they got to Vegas and really got to the casino that you needed to kind of start watching.
Yeah, and it's funny, for all of the stuff that happens before they get there, like, you really never get a chance to really learn anything about the characters other than, like, Batista and his daughter.
Uh-huh.
Like,
yeah,
they're the only ones that really get any sort of, like, fleshing out.
There's a reason to that. You know that. Like, it's based on watching the movie, you know why they don't flesh out any of the other characters.
I mean, you do, but, like, in any other zombie movie, like, if it's that long, like, characters get a little bit of, like, fleshing out.
Yeah, like, some of them would get, like, a little bit of fleshing out, but it's more of, like, the characters you're made to hate, and that's what they do. The characters you were supposed to hate or supposed to not like, they fleshed them out, they gave you a little bit of information on them, but the rest of them, they're just like, there's no point in fleshing them out, because this is not a film that's going to give you emotions. This is a film to give you a zombie heist movie. It
could have given, like, not like sad emotions, but it could have just made you, like, more excited, because, like, there were several points where people basically, like, sacrificed themselves for another character that, like, almost didn't feel earned, because it's why are you sacrificing your life for a guy you've known for 3 hours who, like, you've said 2 words to?
Yeah. Agreed.
There was something else I was gonna point out about it, and now I'm blanking on it. Shit. Oh, the helicopter pilot. I don't know if you guys read this or not.
Tigna
Yeah. They weren't the original person for that role. Somebody else originally filmed the movie. Then they got They were outed as being, like, a shitty person. They had, like, some sexual abuse allegations and stuff like that against them. So they were all of their scenes were refilmed. And you don't even really realize it while you're watching it.
Is that why Tig was basically not on screen with anybody else the entire time?
Yeah, like, they used, like, body doubles and stuff like that to, like, fix that stuff. But, like, if you don't know that's the case, it's really easy to not really catch it unless, like, you hear about it, like you just said later, where, like, you're just like, oh yeah, like, they just weren't in scenes together.
I wonder who it was.
It's on the Wikipedia. It wasn't a name that, like, was recognizable to me, but I saw somebody on, like, Twitter point this out. Zack Snyder was able to completely replace an actor in a 2.5-hour movie. Fucking the WB couldn't replace a fucking mustache in 15 minutes of movie.
Yeah, true.
Is there anything else either of you guys really want to say about the movie, though?
I mean, I don't know. I personally kind of checked out by the point they actually started getting through the casino, because, like, kind of to your point, like, they did nothing with the characters to make me care by that point, like, if they actually succeeded. And then fucking the dude, the, like, evil plant guy that got planted in by the person who sent them, like, his character, like, the fuck with that character, it made no sense.
Yeah, that was super stupid, but yeah. I agree, though. I did sort of, like, I didn't miss stuff in the middle of the movie, but, like, I definitely do not remember from, like, the point that they got to the casino to the point where they were dealing with the vault all that well. Like, I remember, like, there was, like, a swarm. I think the planted dude did something shitty, if I remember correctly. Before he did the whole, like, cut the head off thing.
Well, he caused the one girl to get, like, go off the path they were supposed to be going on, and then eventually she, like, got swarmed by zombies. they had to shoot the fucking gas can that was on her and blow it up and blow up a bunch of zombies.
That was a cool visual, though.
Yeah.
Like, just because Snyder did his trademark, like, fast into slow into fast shot, where, like, you know, the bullet shoots and then they slow down when it goes into the gas can and you just see it, like, slowly kind of, like, blossom and then explode.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just goes back to, like, normal time.
Yeah.
But also, that's not what would happen. Like,
no.
Bullets don't create fire when they penetrate a plastic jug.
No.
The Mythbusters disproved that years ago.
Yep.
It was Chris D'Elia, who was a comedian. He was in some films.
Okay, I do not recognize that name at all. I didn't look into him either. If you
saw them, you might recognize him. Like, I don't know that I had ever really seen anything he was in, but when I saw him, I was like, oh, that guy. But I did not recognize the name either.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't in, like, Glory Days from 2010 to 2011. Like, he wasn't really in anything that normally catches our attention. He was in a couple of episodes of The Good Doctor. He was in one episode of Rush Hour.
He was on the show Whitney.
Yeah, like, there's just not a lot that he's actually in that we would be interested in.
Yeah, I like, looking at this stuff, I don't think I watched any of these things in movies or TV shows.
Yeah, but, like, I do remember, I've seen some of his comedy, and he is kind of funny, but at the same time, he's, like, kind of that shitty funny. And then, I remember hearing about what happened, or what he did, and I'm glad they replaced him.
Yeah, and, like, totally just ripped him entirely out of that fucking movie.
Yeah.
So, good on them. Good.
and I enjoy Tig. Tig's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But yeah, I also still stand by, like, this is probably one of my favorite Zack Snyder movies. Like, it has its problem. It's not great in the middle, but like, I thought the setup was interesting, and I thought, like, the end was at least actiony.
Yeah, and I can see myself sitting down watching this again when I have, like, actual time, and I'll watch the sequel when it comes out. That was good enough. The only thing that I'm a little hesitant on, like, really talking up about it is I've read about the movie The Peninsula, which is a sequel essentially to Train to Busan, and that's kind of the same concept. It's a heist movie where they're going into the quarantine zone of South Korea that's been, like, quarantined with the zombie outbreak to get something that's down there. So, like, I haven't watched that yet. I've been meaning to, and that movie came out, I think, in 2020. It's kind of newish. So I'm like, I hope they didn't, like, kind of take the same idea, or I hope this is just a coincidence.
I mean, that's such a boilerplate fucking plot. Like,
and also, if this has been in production, like, if this has been, like, a thing that he's been trying to get made for 14 years, like, I imagine, because I didn't know anything about this before it came out, so I imagine it wasn't super well known, like, what the concept was, so it's probably, like, more coincidence than anything.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what it is, just still.
But, Rich, how were your 4.5 hours of Godzilla cartoons?
And so, it was Godzilla Planet of Monsters, Godzilla, I can't remember the name of the movies now. Man, because they're weird names. But it was the Earthbreaker trilogy, I think is what people call them. And it was the CG Godzilla animated films that were made for Netflix. And if you're going to watch them, you have to watch them back to back to back, because they take place within minutes of each other. And otherwise, there's going to be some disconnect if you do it. They had some interesting takes on Godzilla ideals and ideas from the past. In the second one, he basically fights Mecha Godzilla City. That's the enemy name.
Is this like Unicron but Mecha Godzilla?
Yes, actually. Basically, what it is so what happens are the kaiju start attacking Earth, and two different kinds of aliens come to Earth. One saying that they're going to try to help Earth, and another one saying, like, we'll help you, but you have to let us live here if we do. And so the ones that offer help, but for, like, being able to live there, they develop Mechagodzilla, but it gets attacked by Godzilla before they can actually activate it. But in order to create Mechagodzilla, they created this basically a biometal that can evolve and spread itself and grow, essentially. The all life forms on Earth, the Council of Earthlings and whatever, they're able to devise a plan and they leave Earth, and fly, just try to find a new habitable planet, and they're gone for I think it was 10 years. But with the way they do their warp drive and warp system, more time passes on Earth every time they do it. So eventually at one point they're running out of supplies and they need to go back to Earth to get more. So they warp back to Earth, and they're now 20,000 years into the future from when they left Earth. Although it's been maybe a couple of years for them. It's really weird. And so they're like, well, maybe Godzilla's dead because it's been 20,000 years. And the whole first movie is them, learning that Godzilla's still alive and devising a plan to kill him, where then they do eventually kill him, and it turns out that was just a baby Godzilla, and Godzilla comes out from underground, and there's a real Godzilla.
Why do they always have to kill Godzilla?
Because Godzilla is not, in this one, Godzilla was indiscriminately attacking any humans. And so they wanted their planet back, but it's the reason... In this one, the reason the monsters were attacking were because humans created technologies that was like destroying the planet, and so the planet created kaiju. There's like I say,
isn't that Final Fantasy VII?
I mean, it's essentially the story to most Godzilla movies is save the planet. We're destroying the planet. We're eventually going to get attacked by giant kaiju monsters. Stop destroying the planet so we don't get attacked by giant kaiju monsters.
I mean, you're not wrong, but also, that is Final Fantasy VII. The planet is being attacked basically by humans, like doing too much shitty stuff to the planet. So the planet unleashes the weapons.
Yeah, true.
Which are just fucking kaiju.
Yeah. That's...
So really, Final Fantasy VII is a Godzilla game.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Ultimate Weapon is Godzilla. You could say that Ruby would be maybe Ghidorah.
I mean, I would have more said or not Emerald.
No, Emerald would be the what is it? Abora is the water one.
Ebra, the pollution one. Yeah, the pollution monster would be Ebra. Oh no, if you're talking the lobster, it would be Ebra. If you're talking the pollution guy, it would have been Hedorah. And actually, Ruby would be, would it be Gigan, or, man, there's so many monsters, I can't remember their names right now. I think it would be Gigan. I think he's the one with the drills on his arms. Drills on his hands. I can't remember. I need to look up my Godzilla monsters.
There are a lot of Godzilla monsters.
Diamond Weapon would more have been like Godzilla, because Godzilla doesn't fly, right?
Right. I mean, he can curl himself into a shrimp and use his atomic breath to make him fly. I already said this earlier.
But I mean, Ultimate Weapon has wings, flies around.
Yeah. Diamond, you didn't even really fight, if I remember correctly. You had one round of combat, and then they fired the cannon at him, right?
Pretty much.
So that's. I wanted to give Godzilla a little bit more.
I mean, fair. That is fair, but
a little bit more than a quick death. But yeah, so these movies, get back to them. They're not bad. They're completely different.
Did you make it through it without falling asleep this time?
I made it through the first two without falling asleep, and I was teetering on the edge through the third one. But that was also an hour after I'd finished the second one. I'd taken a quick break, did some things around the house, and then went back to it. And I was really feeling it that day, and it was the start of when it was hot, so my body temperature wasn't regulating properly because my house was kind of warm, and so I was just teetering on the edge of falling asleep during the third one.
Yeah, so sitting on your couch when it's warm watching a movie, it's real easy to fall asleep.
Exactly. But they're interesting. They're definitely not some of the best movies. I think it's hard to compare them to the rest because of how different they are. But as a whole, they do complete an interesting storyline, and it's Planet of the Monsters, City on the Edge of Battle, and the Planet Eater are the three subtitles for the films. And they even at one point kind of alluded to Mothra. They had some mech things. It was like, Cobb, you would definitely hate them because it was more the humans trying to deal with Godzilla, and that's it. And then there was like maybe 20 minutes of Godzilla afterwards. But like there's just like, it's this whole world that they created that, and like the evolution of the planet after the humans left and the 20,000 years that went by, that really like pulls it kind of together. They did, I think, kind of leave it open for a potential sequel, but they're not going to do that. There is a book, I believe it is, or it might be, it is a book, it's not like a manga or comic, for a prequel to this, but it's only in Japanese, so I can't read it.
Or you could learn Japanese.
That's a lot of work.
No, it really is. Especially to learn how to read Japanese.
Yeah, but yeah, it's they're easy to watch movies. I'm not gonna say they're popcorn films. But like if you're gonna watch them and you want to watch them all at once. Otherwise, you're gonna lose, because literally the end of the first movie is him waking up, and the beginning of the second movie is the main character waking up in the same scene. They take place within minutes to seconds of it.
Yeah, that is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even finish telling you about Mechagodzilla City, though. So Godzilla stops Mechagodzilla City Mechagodzilla from being activated, and then 20,000 years go by, and they eventually just find 20,000 years. They eventually find the city that's covered in this quote biometal that is designed to kill Godzilla. And so all of the monsters and creatures on this planet has evolved in some way to have part monster and part Godzilla in them. And so any monsters that go to this area get attacked by this biometal. And they look around, it's just a full-on fucking city. So they're just like, oh, this is Mechagodzilla City. I'm like, this is bullshit. And all it is them, like, using the metal that can turn into liquid and basically, like, form whatever it wants. They use the city to, like, create a track and create guns to fire it. They don't use the city to create another Mecha fucking Godzilla. They pull Mechagodzilla to the city. Or not Mecha, they pull Godzilla to the city and attack him. And I was just like, this is bullshit, man. I wanted to see fucking a giant Mecha Godzilla. Like, this Godzilla is the tallest Godzilla ever. We should have seen the tallest Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, I feel like that should be true.
The finale is, or the last one is, he fights Ghidorah, but you don't even see Ghidorah's body, it's just its heads. And it's essentially, like, it comes from a different universe, and 3 black holes open up, and each head comes out, and they're just, like, infinity long. They can just go as long as they need. It was the weirdest thing. An interesting design choice for Ghidorah.
Yeah, and I guess because it's animated, it's much easier to kind of, like, do wild shit, because they don't have to figure out how to make, like, a puppet do it, or CG it, and make it look just super fake.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it was, they could go off the, yeah, I'm excited to see, now that I finished Godzilla, I'm excited to see both what Japan pulls out for Godzilla, and what the United States does with Godzilla in the future. Like, we already know the next Monster Universe movie is Son of Kong, so we're not going to be getting a Godzilla for a while, at least in the from Legendary. But it's been 3 years since we've gotten a Godzilla from Japan, and so this is now the longest break since the Millennium Era ended in 2004 to the 2016 current era. So,
wow.
Yeah. Millennium Era ended in 2004 with Final Wars, with their 50th anniversary. And then the Reiwa Era started in 2016 with Shin Godzilla.
And there's really only been one of those, because, like, the animes don't count, right?
No, the animes count as part of the Reiwa Era. So, because they were Japanese Toho Studios created and Funimation produced. It's all Toho, so it's all technically kind of like canon, or there's no real canon for Godzilla. It is official Godzilla content, whereas like technically the Legendary and the TriStar 98 Godzilla, they're not technically Godzilla official. They do have a license, but they're not Toho, who owns Godzilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed they weren't the same.
No, yeah. So for the American versions, no. These are all like Japanese Toho created, so they are part of the same era as Shingen. But guys, I hope you really enjoyed my 36-week Godzilla marathon.
It's been longer than that, hasn't it?
Nope. Let's see. There's 32 Toho films, 1, 2, 4 American films, so it's 36. So it's actually been less than that. It would be 33 weeks. It was a 34-week marathon.
Well, it seems like it's been going on longer, I guess, because it's just so many fucking movies.
It's so many fucking movies.
And it would have been too longer had you like watched the anime ones like week by week.
We're not going to tell anybody, but there is a movie that I haven't seen yet in this marathon that I can't find anywhere, so it just doesn't count anymore. And the movie, from what I hear, sucks anyway.
Oh, right,
so
the one that
care.
It was the one that took place in the little boy's mind or whatever, right?
Yeah. So I watched it as a kid. I remember that, but I don't give a shit to watch it.
There's a TV series that had a similar thing from the early 90s, where like the whole thing ended up being in like somebody's mind or something like that. I used to think it was Twin Peaks, but I now know it wasn't Twin Peaks. Also, apparently, completely unrelated, the Facebook app apparently just lost the ability to have dark mode on like phones.
I don't actually. I've never used dark mode on the Facebook.
Oh, I hate the regular one. It's so bright and white and sterile. Like everything's dark mode all the time, and the Facebook app just literally like I double checked, and it's actually like it's not just me. It just vanished for a bunch of people. Stupid fucking Facebook.
Yeah, fuck Facebook.
But
just so you guys know, there's still more Godzilla because the anime premieres in the United States on Netflix on June 24th. So
is it like a series?
It's a 10-episode series.
Okay, so you'll have you'll have at least 10 more weeks of Godzilla.
No, it'll be one. That'll probably be watched.
I mean, most likely, maybe 2, but it'll probably be in the same week.
Yeah. It'll be one episode if I'm talking.
Fair enough. I guess that is a show though. So yeah, we'll be back next week with literally something different to talk about. 'Cause we're gonna rework some stuff. But in the meantime, if you'd like to find more of our content, you can head over to www.one-quest.com. You can also help us out by supporting us at patreon.com/onequest. If you can't support us there with dollars, you can go to your favorite podcasting platform like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music. Rate us, review us, subscribe to us. Those things all help a whole lot. You can also find us on social media, facebook.com/onequestonline or at @1_quest on Instagram and Twitter. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/onequestvideo, and you can always send us an email to social@one-quest.com. Otherwise, once again, we'll be back next week with something else to talk about. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.